俺が守ってやるってばよ。別にあんたに守ってもらわなくて結構よ。
said, making Kurenai smile with a nod that she wasn't kidding. Anko gasped and looked at Naruto. "Nai-chan, this is huge. Are you sure you can handle that?" Anko asked and Kurenai nodded. "Of course, Anko. I take care of you just fine on occasion," Kurenai said, making Naruto snicker at the purple-haired woman's shocked face. "How did he become yours?" Anko asked, and Kurenai told Anko the whole story of how she found Naruto and her talk with the Sandaime Hokage about adopting Naruto, and needless to say, Anko was even more surprised. "Whoa, Nai-chan. I didn't know you had it in you," Anko said while Kurenai's eyebrow twitched. The Chunin huffed while Anko smiled at Naruto, making the blonde smile back at her. "So if he's your son, then can I be his sister?" Anko asked, making Kurenai raise an eyebrow. Anko's eyes gave a pleading look while Kurenai sighed. Somewhere in her head this was a horrible idea, but she relented. "Fine, Anko, you can be Naruto-kun's sister I guess, though I don't see why," Kurenai said, and Anko's grin got bigger. "Are you kidding, Nai-chan?" Anko asked as she sped to Naruto, and gave him a hug, making the blonde blush. "I've always wanted a little brother with whisker marks," Anko said, and Naruto's face turned blue. "And breathe, Ni-chan," Naruto said before Anko dropped him with a smile while Kurenai sighed. "So what are you two going to do?" Anko asked while Kurenai took out a scroll. She turned to see Naruto next to her and smiled. "We're going to start packing Naruto's clothes from his old apartment. I have an extra room near mine that I never use, though it was mainly used for you when you passed out drinking," Kurenai said, making Anko give a nervous laugh while she scratched her cheek. "Well, I've got nothing to do, so can I come?" Anko asked, and Kurenai shrugged her shoulders. "I suppose. Come on, Naruto-kun, and show us to your apartment," Kurenai said, and Naruto nodded. He immediately ran off and they followed him. It turned out that Naruto's house wasn't so far from theirs, maybe about 10 minutes, and the sight of it made Kurenai and Anko narrow their eyes. It was old and seemed like it could be reconstructed, but it held out just fine. They all walked up the creaking stairboards until they came up to Naruto's door. Anko widened her eyes, and Kurenai's gaze grew cold. Naruto's eyes turned sad as they saw that his door had been broken down. Across the walls were hateful remarks about the demon, and how it could die or go to hell, something like that. Kurenai saw that Naruto's room was mostly clean, if not for the random kunai marks and notes which Kurenai and Anko tore down. Kurenai turned to her son and smiled. "Don't worry, Naruto-kun. I won't let anyone or anything hurt you, I promise," Kurenai said, and Naruto's mood instantly changed. He thanked his adopted mother, and the three go to work on sealing the blonde's clothes into the scroll. He didn't have much, and most of his clothes were old, so Kurenai decided to take him shopping after this, while Anko would have some fun with whoever did this to her little brother's room. It took about half an hour, but everything of importance was sealed, and the three left the old apartment. "Alright, I'll take before we head back home. I think we'll take him shopping for some clothes, then we'll get something to eat to end the day," Kurenai stated while Anko and Naruto nodded, ignoring the many glares they got from people. "Gotcha, Nai-chan. Come on, Naruto-kun, let's get you some clothes," Anko said as she grabbed Naruto's hand, and the three walked for a clothes store. As soon as they came to one, all three entered the shop and were met with a smile that quickly turned into a frown when he saw Naruto. Obviously Kurenai and Anko noticed his frown and glared. "That thing isn't allowed in here," the man said simply while Kurenai's hair covered her eyes again. "Anko, take Naruto-kun outside. I've got to teach this man a lesson," Kurenai said, and Anko nodded as she grabbed Naruto and took him outside, while Kurenai smiled. "Let me show you why I'm called the Genjutsu Mistress of Konoha, and why you never insult my son," Kurenai said as the man was about to find out that he made the worst mistake of his life. Anko and Naruto waited outside for a few minutes before Kurenai smiled and allowed them inside. Naruto and Anko smiled and walked inside, while the man was smiling like he just saw death flash before his eyes. "He take anything you want. It's on the H house," he said, and Kurenai nodded. She and Anko grabbed countless clothes, and had Naruto try on a few of them for their amusement. After about an hour, the three left and Naruto's stomach began to rumble. It was the middle of the day, so that was understandable. "Are you hungry, Naruto-kun?" Kurenai asked, and her adoptive son nodded. Anko's stomach grumbled too, which made Kurenai sigh. "Great, so are you." "Well, I don't have my supplies, so I can't really cook," Kurenai said with a sigh, while Naruto's eyes gleamed. "Hasan, can we get some ramen?" Naruto asked, making Kurenai and Anko raise their eyebrows at him. "Ramen would be a good change of pace, Nai-chan." "Let's get some," Anko said, agreed with her new little brother. Kurenai looked from her son to her best friend and sighed. "Well, alright. I don't mind. Let's go then, Kurenai said as Naruto pointed his mother and sister towards his favorite, but Sarutobi's. The god of shinobi was currently in the council room dealing with the ramblings of his council members, which irritated him to no end. Sarutobi sighed as he placed his chin on his elbows and his elbows on the table. Now that this matter is over, what should we do about that blonde brat? A civilian said, making the shinobi side narrow their eyes. They were comprised of all the clans of Konoha. There was the Amanaka, Inyazuka, Hyuga, Uchiha, Nara, Aburam, and Akimichi. Of these clans were Inoichi, Tsume, Hiashi, Mikoto, Shikaku, Shaibi, and Chauza. That brat has a name, just so you know, Tsume said, growling at them all. I don't care what you call him. The brat is just a brat. Come on, Sarutobi, you know about his problem, we should get rid of him now, a councilwoman said, making Sarutobi narrow his eyes. That's Hokage-sama to you, and you won't do anything to Naruto-kun, Sarutobi said, making Tsume and Mikoto smile. Maybe I could adopt, Tsume started, but was stopped by Sarutobi's old teammate, Kaharu Udatane. Absolutely not. He should be left alone as he always has been, Kaharu said, making Tsume growl, but Hiruzen was smirking as he got a drop on the council. Besides, Tsume-san, it hardly matters now, Sarutobi said, turning everyone's attention to him, making Mikoto and Tsume raise an eyebrow. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Mikoto asked, interested in hearing what their Hokage had to say, and so did everyone else. Even Konoha's old warhawk, Danzo Shimura, was interested in this one. Naruto-kun has already been adopted, Sarutobi said, making everyone widen their eyes, especially the civilian council members. Tsume and Mikoto seemed more surprised than anyone else. What? Who would adopt that thing? A man said, making Sarutobi glare at him. He's not a thing, and I think the woman who adopted him as her son wouldn't like it if you called him a thing, Sarutobi said, making everyone tense. Hokage-sama who adopted Naruto Uzumaki. I believe we should know this information, Hiashi said in a stoic form, making everyone nod in complete agreement with him. Alright Hiashi, since you and the other want to know so badly, then I'll tell you. As of 2 days ago, Naruto Uzumaki was adopted by Kurenai Yuhi, our Genjutsu Mistress. All of the paperwork has been finalized by me also, Sarutobi said, drawing gasps from everyone on the council. That woman adopted that brat, someone said, making Sarutobi nod. We should stop her right now. Another person said before Tsume slammed the desk. I don't think so. If she adopted him, then it's fine with me. Kurenai has the support of the Inyazuka clan, Tsume said, while Mikoto stood to her feet. As well as the Uchiha clan, Mikoto said to everyone. Most people gulped and dropped the issue, since the Uchihas were still quite influential, even if it was only Mikoto and her son, Sasuke Uchiha. But, someone started. No buts. Unless you want to fight me, then you leave Kurenai and Naruto alone, Mikoto said, and Tsume backed her up, making Sarutobi chuckle with a nod. Well, if that's all, then this meeting is adjourned, he said, and left while most were still stunned at the news. With Kurenai, Naruto, and Anko. All three were heading back home, while Naruto and Anko rubbed their stomach. Naruto wasn't kidding. That Tuchi sure can cook some ramen, Anko said, and Naruto nodded along with Kurenai. It was delicious, wasn't it? Kurenai said, and Naruto tugged his mother's arm. Hasan, do you think I can be like you and B-chan? Naruto asked, making Kurenai and Anko raise their eyebrows. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Kurenai asked, and the blonde blushed slightly. I want to make you too proud. I want to be a shinobi. Please teach me Kasan, Ni-chan, Naruto said as Kurenai and Anko looked at each other. Anko grinned and shrugged her shoulders. It's your call, Nai-chan. He's your son, Anko said, making Kurenai smile. Alright, Naruto-kun. We'll train you, but you must work hard and no complaining, Kurenai said, and Naruto's eyes beamed as he hugged his mother. You got it, Kasan. I'll make you and Ni-chan proud, Dadabeo. Naruto yelled as he grinned. Kurenai ruffled his hair while Anko smiled. Things are getting interesting, Anko said, and Kurenai nodded as the three walked off to their homes to prepare for the next day and Naruto's training. Next morning, Naruto groggily woke up and yawned himself awake. The blonde rubbed his head before he took in his surroundings. The blonde widened his eyes when he remembered the events that happened yesterday. He had just gained a mother, and he was more than happy about that. He also got an older sister, and while she was kind of weird, Naruto still liked her nonetheless. He also felt well rested in his new bed that Kurenai gave him. He hadn't had such a good sleep in such a long time, especially in such a comfortable bed like he had. I wonder if Kasan's up, Naruto said before he smelled something cooking. His stomach grumbled, and the blonde gulped as he stood to his feet. He quickly walked to the door and opened it to see Kurenai setting plates while humming a soft morning tone. Naruto smiled at his mother's singing and walked close, alerting the Genjutsu Mistress to her adoptive son's presence. I see I didn't need to wake you up, Kurenai said, and Naruto sheepishly grinned as he sat at the table. Kurenai followed in suit and placed a glass of fresh milk in front of Naruto. The blonde looked at it, then back at his mother. I thought you might like some Western food for a change, Kurenai said, placing some toast, eggs on the table in front of him. Thank you, Ka-san, Naruto said as he took a fork and started to eat the delicious breakfast in front of him, while Kurenai sipped some coffee. She smiled at her son's behavior and wondered how long it had been before he ever had a home-cooked meal. She only had herself and maybe Anko to go by when it came to cooking, but the look of joy on Naruto's face told her that she had done a good job with the breakfast. Naruto looked up from his food to see Kurenai smiling at him, and the blonde blushed as he took a bite of his toast. "Ka-san, why aren't you eating anything?" Naruto asked, and Kurenai giggled, which made Naruto more confused, but he waited for his mother's reply. "I don't eat this early. I just need my cinnamon coffee for right now," Kurenai said, and Naruto wondered what that could have tasted like, but he forgot it after a while, and drank his milk, which ended his breakfast. Kurenai watched as her son picked up his dishes and walked towards the sink, and started to clean the dishes, which really surprised the Ice Queen, while she drank her coffee. "Wow, Naruto-kun, I didn't expect you to wash the dishes," Kurenai said, and Naruto allowed a smile to come across his face. He turned to his mother and gave her a thumbs up. "I had to wash the little bit of dishes I had back in my old apartment, and I want to do what I can to make you happy, even if it's this," Naruto said, placing one clean dish on the counter, making Kurenai smile at her son for not acting like most 6-year-old boys. He knows how to be responsible. Normal boys his age would immediately go outside to play. "That's my son," Kurenai thought before getting up and placing her coffee cup in the sink, and Naruto turned to that next. It was then that Kurenai grabbed Naruto into a small hug, which made the blonde pause from washing the dishes. "Naruto-kun, when you're done I want you to get dressed in some of your new clothes. We're going to see Hokage-sama today and tell him about your training. Anko will be coming with us also. After we leave the Hokage mansion we're going to go to the library and start your training with us, alright?" Kurenai asked, and Naruto nodded, understanding his mother's words. So on that note, Kurenai released her son and went into her room to go get dressed. Naruto finished the dishes and went into his room also. Naruto rummaged through his closet and looked at all the new clothes he had. He still couldn't believe his mother managed to get all this stuff for free yesterday. It really made him wonder what she did, but he didn't care. He was just happy that she cared that much about him to get him these clothes. The blonde put on a black short jeans and a red sleeveless shirt, which really reminded him of his mother's eyes. He also wore the black handboo shoes that his mother got him and checked over his body. He went into the bathroom and brushed his teeth. Naruto came out of his room and waited for his mother to arrive as he sat on the couch. He didn't even have to wait long before saw Kurenai appear in a red mesh blouse armor, and over that was a white bandage-looking dress that came down to her thighs. "Looking very good, Naruto-kun. Well, are you ready to go?" Kurenai asked, and Naruto nodded with his mother. She grabbed his hand and walked towards the door, but immediately there was a knock coming, which made Kurenai and Naruto raise their eyebrows. The Genjutsu Mistress opened the door, and both smiled when they saw who it was. "Looks like I'm right on time," Anko said, making Kurenai and Naruto nod at her. "Ka-san and I were about to leave." "It's good to see you again, Anko-nichan," Naruto said, which caused Anko to give him a hug. "It's good to see you too, Naruto-kun. So what are we waiting for?" "Let's go," Anko said, and Kurenai nodded in agreement with her best friend. "Alright then, let's hit the streets," Anko said, grinning like mad, making Naruto chuckle and Kurenai sigh. She wondered how she was going to handle Naruto's growth, with Anko being an influence like she was. As they walked through the trees, Anko and Kurenai could feel the glares more than usual, but they still didn't mind. Kurenai ignored them as usual, since she was sort of used to being glared at, but for a different reason, while Anko glared right back at people as she twirled a kunai in her hands. Naruto shrunk under the stairs, making his mother and older sister worry about him, and see that Anko grinned. "Hey Naruto, wanna see a good prank?" Anko asked, and Naruto instantly gave her the attention she wanted. Kurenai glared at Anko, wondering if she was about to do something that would give her a headache so early. Anko walked up to a civilian man who had been glaring at them and smiled. "Hey sir, good morning to you," Anko said, while the man narrowed his eyes at Anko's smirk. Naruto felt a prank coming, while the man responded. "What do you want, demon lover?" the man asked, and Anko's smile slightly waved, while she grew a tick mark on her head. She slowly patted the man on the back and continued to smile. "Just wanted to say good morning to you is all," Anko said, walking off, confusing the man as he continued to glare at them. Meanwhile, Anko and the others walked away as she held up 3 fingers to Naruto. 3, 2, 1, Anko counted, and immediately the blonde and Chunin heard a yell and turned around to see a snake slithering around the man's neck, making him yell his lungs out, while the other civilians screamed and ran from him before they got bit, which caused Anko and Naruto to burst out laughing. Then Kurenai to slightly giggle. "Anko knew that was awesome. I thought he was going to pass out from the shock," Naruto said, making Anko ruffled her little brother's hair. "Yep, I have a lot more that I could show you. Don't think you're the only prankster in Konoha," Anko said, while Kurenai smiled at them. Anko, Naruto, unless I give permission, don't do that again, Kurenai said while Anko sighed a Kurenai slightly boring sense. Alright Kasan, Naruto said, not wanting to upset her. Anko nodded also, and Kurenai gave a true smile as they walked towards the Hokage mansion, leaving the screaming masses behind. Hokage mansion. Sarutobi sighed as he went through some of the paperwork that he was doing. It was a gruesome thing that every Kage had to endure, but he still hated it, and to think he could be reading his favorite Icha book. He remembered how many of the council members came into his office yesterday about Naruto being adopted by Kurenai, but he told them that he had filled out the paperwork and made sure that it was safe, simply because he always kept it near him. He knew that the group of people who actually liked Naruto was really small, and he had no idea who would tamper with the documents, so he always kept them with him, though where no one knew. It was then that he heard a knock at the door and stopped signing documents. "Come in," he said, and was slightly relieved to have a break. The old Hokage was then surprised to see Anko, Kurenai and Naruto come through the door. His heart lightened when he saw Naruto smiling at Kurenai before everyone turned to him. "Hey Gigi, how have you been?" Naruto asked, making Kurenai raise an eyebrow and Anko to snicker at her little brother. "Naru-kun, be respectful to Hokage-sama," Kurenai said, and Naruto apologized, but Sarutobi stopped Kurenai. "No Kurenai-san, it's alright. He's always called me that, and I hear enough Hokage-sama every day, so it's good to not hear it once in a while," Sarutobi said, and Kurenai nodded while Anko smiled. "How about Sarutobi-sama?" Anko asked, making a suggestion, while Kurenai widened her eyes at how easy they were all talking with the Hokage. "I don't see a problem with that. Now then, what can I help you three with?" Sarutobi asked while Anko turned to Kurenai and gestured for her to proceed. Kurenai stepped forward and turned back to Naruto. "Well, Sarutobi-sama, Naruto told us that he wants to be a shinobi, so Anko and I were considering training him. Then I would enroll him in the academy when he was old enough," Kurenai stated, and Sarutobi turned to Naruto, who nodded in agreement with everything she said. Hassan Dayami took a puff of his smoke. "Well, I certainly have no problem with him learning anything. Also, it's not like you had to come to me for confirmation. Since you are Naruto-kun's mother, you can train him at your leisure if you wanted, though knowing this is much better than not knowing." "Well, is that it?" Sarutobi asked, and Kurenai nodded. "Well, that's good, but you really shocked everyone, Kurenai. If you saw how many people protested to you adopting Naruto-kun, I'm not sure what you would have done," Sarutobi said, and Kurenai sighed. "It doesn't matter, Sarutobi-sama. Naruto-kun is my son and I won't let anyone take him," Kurenai said, and the Sandayami nodded with a gentle smile. "So let me guess, Anko, you wanted a part in this also," Hiruzen said, and Anko chuckled. "Yep. He's my little whisker-faced brother," Anko said, making Sarutobi sigh. He then turned to Naruto and watched the blonde laugh with his family. "At least he's happy," Sarutobi thought before he heard another knock on the door. The Hokage sighed while Kurenai, Anko and Naruto turned their attention to the door. "Come in," Sarutobi said, and the door opened, to which Naruto saw a man in his mid-20s just like Kurenai. His grayish hair and his Konoha headband covering one of his eyes. "Hokage-sama, you wanted to see me?" the man asked with a lazy expression. Kurenai and Anko rolled their eyes at his lazy attitude, while Naruto tugged Kurenai's arm. "Ah-san, who's that?" Naruto asked, pointing to the man, and Kurenai narrowed her eyes as the man looked at her son. "That man is the biggest pervert, Naruto-kun. He is Kakashi Hatake, and he reads weird books. It's best if you avoid him," Kurenai said, making Naruto glare at the man. Kakashi sighed as he rubbed the back of his head with an eye smile. "Come on, Kurenai, don't say that. You'd enjoy it too, if you read it," Kakashi said, to which Kurenai glared at him coldly, making the Jonin sweat drop. "Okay, I guess not," he said while Kurenai glared at Kakashi. Meanwhile, Naruto tugged Anko's trench coat, making the purple-haired woman kneel down to her brother as Naruto whispered into her ear. "Does Kasan have something against Kakashi?" Naruto asked, and Anko smirked as she watched the exchange. "Not that I know of, but she just acts that way with all perverts. It's not just Kakashi, though, you know, Naruto. If you want to be like Kurenai, then you should adopt her gaze also. Your blue eyes are the perfect form of coldness, just like Kurenai's," Anko whispered, making Naruto widen his eyes. He looked up at his mother's glare and mentally told himself that he would try to glare like that someday. The cough from Sarutobi stopped Kurenai's glare, and Kakashi passed Kurenai, Naruto and Anko, then bowed before his Hokage. "Kakashi, why did you fail another team?" Sarutobi asked, and Kakashi narrowed his eye. "It's because they weren't fit to be shinobi, Hokage-sama," Kakashi said, and Sarutobi sighed. He took a deep puff of his smoke and turned to look out the window. "Kakashi, that's the third team you failed. You said you wanted to teach the next generation, but you're making it difficult. Try and pass a team this time," Sarutobi said, and Kakashi nodded before walking towards the door, but then he stopped and turned to Kurenai. "Well, Kurenai, congratulations on adopting Naruto. I guess despite your title as Konoha's Ice Queen you are quite soft, Kakashi said with a chuckle, while Kurenai narrowed her eyes. At least Ka-san isn't a pervert jonin, Naruto suddenly said, making Kurenai widen her eyes and Anko snicker. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the blonde while Naruto glared coldly at him. Kurenai giggled as she looked at her son's glare. He's not bad. That glare would make any normal kid flinch, Kurenai thought before Naruto grabbed her hand. Come on, Ka-san. You and Anko ni said you trained me, so let's go, Naruto said, running out the door while holding Kurenai and Anko's hand. I think you just made him hate you, Sarutobi said, and Kakashi sighed with a nod. He honestly didn't mean anything by it, but he knew that he shouldn't have said it like that. Kurenai already tolerated him and his pervert tendencies as it was. He probably just made it worse. I never thought that Kurenai would adopt Naruto of all people, Kakashi said, and Sarutobi nodded. Yeah, it's a shocker, but I'm happy for him, Sarutobi said, and Kakashi shrugged his shoulder while he took out an orange book and walked off, leaving Sarutobi to his work. With Kurenai, Anko and Naruto. Having left the Hokage mansion, the group left the area, and Kurenai grabbed Naruto's hand. She took him in the direction of the library while she turned to Anko. Anko, prepare our regular training ground for Naruto-kun. We'll be there later, Kurenai said, and Anko nodded as she gave Naruto a goodbye and hopped along the rooftops, while Kurenai and her son walked into the library. They were both met with a bit of hostility, but there was nothing the civilians could do, so Naruto entered the library for the first time. He looked at the mountains of books in the shelves, while Kurenai took him to the shinobi section of the library. Alright Naruto, what do you want to learn? We'll get the books, Kurenai said, and Naruto thought it over. He rubbed his head for a few minutes while Kurenai slowly waited for her son's response to her question. Well, Ka-san, I'd like to learn everything. I want to be a well-balanced shinobi. I heard lots of people calling you the Genjutsu Mistress, so I want that to be my primary art. I'd like to have Taijutsu and Ninjutsu, just so I don't focus on one thing, Naruto said, and Kurenai chuckled, but she remembered QB's large chakra reserves, which gave Naruto nearly Kage-level chakra just at the age he was. Genjutsu would be a bit of a struggle for him, but this was her son and the least she could do was believe it was possible and teach him. Well, Naruto-kun, I'm glad you want to be